Hi home video makers. This is the example mentioned in the tutorial on using the camera zoom shot effect in Magix Movie Studio and Video Pro X, which you should have watched first. In the tutorial, we saw how to use the camera zoom shot effect to quickly and easily do zooming and panning on an image, also known as the Ken Burns effect. In this example, we'll use the last duration on the list, Custom, to create multiple zooms and pans on an image like that playing on the screen. Imagine that this image on the timeline is a photo with several people in it instead of garden animals, and that you want to zoom in on each person in turn. We're going to be using keyframes a lot for this example. The object duration needs to be long enough to do this reasonably, and I've set it to 15 seconds. I'll click on Custom for the duration. The rectangle in the preview monitor is full screen, and I want to start with that. I want to zoom in on the rabbit, so I'll resize the rectangle and put it over the rabbit. Click on To Section. Immediately, size, position, rotation shows up in the object keyframe timeline, and keyframes are placed at the beginning and end of this timeline. Note here that if the effect, size, position, rotation, is not highlighted in the keyframe area, then you don't have access to the buttons for that effect. If it turns off, just click on it to turn it on. The keyframe at the beginning of the timeline is for the original size. I want this to start after about 1 second, so I'll drag the keyframe to the right. Observe the time indicator as I move the keyframe. It shows the time from the start of the object. I want to move the other keyframe, that's at the end of the timeline, the zoom over the rabbit, so that the zoom pan takes about 2 seconds. I'll drag the keyframe to about 2 seconds from the first keyframe. You can see the times indicated in the keyframe area as you drag the keyframe. Watch the rectangle as I move along the timeline. Once we get to the second keyframe, nothing happens. The image is held. I want to hold the image on the rabbit for about 1 second, so I'll move the playback marker to about 1 second from the keyframe, or 4 seconds from the start, and click on the Add Keyframe button. Now I want to move over the turtle and zoom in a little bit more. I'll move the playback marker to be about 2 seconds from the previous keyframe and resize and position the rectangle over the turtle. A keyframe is automatically placed. I'll switch to playback mode. As I scrub along the timeline, we see the image full screen, a zoom in onto the rabbit, hold, and a zoom pan to the turtle. Nothing further happens. Back to edit mode. I'll place the playback marker at about 1 second from the last keyframe and add a keyframe. This will hold the image, and this is where I want the next zoom pan to start. I now want to zoom out a ways. I'll move along the timeline another 2 seconds and make the rectangle larger to zoom out and position the rectangle so that the right side shows the rabbits at the extreme right. A keyframe is automatically placed at that location. I don't want to hold here. I just want to zoom out and then start zooming in on these rabbits. So I'll move along the timeline another 2 seconds and resize the rectangle and position it over the rabbits. A keyframe is automatically placed. I'll hold this for about 1 second by moving along the timeline about 1 second and adding a keyframe. To zoom back out to full screen, there's a slight problem using camera zoom shot. Expanding the rectangle perfectly to full image is a bit difficult, and we can easily go outside of the actual image. There are 2 ways to do this. Copy-paste the first keyframe, or go to size, position, rotation. For now, I'll stay with camera zoom shot. I know that the first keyframe has the values for full screen. I'll go to the first keyframe, click on it to make sure that it's blue, click on Copy Keyframe, move to the point where I want to get full screen, about 1 second from the last keyframe, and click on Paste Keyframe. The other way to do this would be to go to Size, Position, Rotation, and with the playback marker where I want full screen, click on Movie Size, then center this by clicking on the Position Center button. Back to camera zoom shot. Click on Preview and play it back. The image starts full screen, zooms in over the rabbit, pans over to the turtles and changes size, holds for 1 second, then zooms out and zooms back in over the other 2 rabbits, holds, and then zooms back out to full screen. Back to edit mode. If you don't like the time between keyframes, adjust the location of the keyframes to get what you want. You can modify the size and location of the rectangle at any point by first selecting the keyframe so that it's blue, then modifying the rectangle. Be careful here, as sometimes doing this creates a second keyframe instead of modifying the one that you selected. If that happens, select each keyframe in turn and delete it. Then modify the rectangle to create a new keyframe at that location. Of course, you can use the size, position, rotation effect for more detailed editing. To see more on keyframing, watch my tutorial on keyframing for the size, position, rotation effect. That's it. Thanks for watching. Till next time, enjoy.